great honor this coming hour to talk with Father Paul Kramer. He is the last living survivor with intimate knowledge of the entire story of the 3 secrets of Fatima, the prophecies. And the third one is supposed to pretty well spill the beans on what is happening now and where we're all going on this sinking ship of a planet. Maybe that's a little negative, Father Kramer. Is it? I hope not. Welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me on. And the first thing I can say is there's the caveat given by Cicero in a book he wrote called De Divinatione, on divination. And he said, I think it is advantageous for us not to know what is the future.
Now, that was Cicero, Father Kramer? Cicero?
That was Cicero. Yet
okay.
The Blessed Virgin Mary appeared in 1917 to 3 children, and revealed some events that would take place in the future, events of great importance for the history of the world that will be taking place. She didn't specify at the time when those events would be. When she revealed the secret in 1960, she said she wanted to reveal it. When she revealed it in 1917, on July the 13th, 1917.
To these 3 little girls, right?
It was two girls and 1 boy.
Whoa, that's right. It was a boy. I remember now. And the girls
Francisco,
and the boy.
His name was Francisco, yeah.
Francisco,
Jacinta, Lucia, and Francisco.
Yeah.
And the one who would talk with the Virgin was Lucia. And Jacinta could hear her speak, but she didn't speak with her. And
interesting. She could hear the Virgin Mary's voice, but she did not speak to her. She could just hear her.
No,
interesting.
Lucia was the one who spoke to her.
Yes. Now,
and,
if I might, Father Kramer, this is a subject that many people, they don't have to be in your church particularly, but many people take very, very seriously, the Fatima prophecies. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I became interested in the Fatima prophecy, the Fatima message already in my teenage years. I heard about it as a small child, so I was aware of the fact that the Blessed Virgin had appeared to the 3 children, and that she had revealed a secret. There was the requests that were made, what people should do, and the basic message is that people must return to God, repent, and live godly lives. Otherwise, God is going to punish the world in a terrible way. And in fact, it will be a punishment that is worse than the biblical flood. So in order to put everything in context, I can recall that the archivist of of Fatima, he was Father Joaquin Alonso, who spoke of there would be a great that the secret reveals that there will be a great failure in the upper hierarchy of the church. Now that is putting it mildly, because we know more specifically what was said in the secret about that, and there will be many great events in the world that will be dreadful events that are contingent, that are going to be a punishment, and that will follow upon what takes place in the church. And what takes place in the church is going to be something catastrophic in itself.
Now, let me ask you a question, if I might. Is this the first secret of Fatima we're talking about? Are we?
No, the first secret,
or is this something else?
The first secret of Fatima was a vision, the vision of hell. The first secret was the vision of hell. That was on July 13th, 1917. Okay. The children were shown hell. The second part of the secret was the commentary given by the Virgin on the vision of hell, where she said, "You have seen hell, where the souls of poor sinners, the condemned sinners, will go." In order to save them, she says, in order to save them, God wants to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart. And she says, "I will, for this to be done, I will come back and I will request the consecration of Russia." And the importance of Russia in all this will become apparent as we go on.
All right. So that's the first and second. That's
the first and second part of the secret.
Okay.
That's
and the third.
That's not the entire second part of the secret. There's much more to it. She said.
Yes.
She said if her requests are heeded, there will be peace in the world. If not, now this was 1917. She says, if not, another war will break out during the reign of Pius XI. And that, of course, was World War II. At the very end of the reign of Pius XI, you had the invasion of Austria, which escalated into a world war. You had the invasion of China by the Japanese, which also escalated into the Pacific theater of the World War. That all took place during the reign of Pope Pius XI. So she specified the name Pius XI in that prophecy made on July.
Well, before
13th.
He was installed. Yeah, understood.
That's right, because this was during the reign of Pope Benedict XV.
Right.
Then,
by the way, the invasion of Austria during World War II by Germany was really done without a shot being fired, basically. The Austrians just welcomed the Germans in, and that was it. So it wasn't really a military invasion of sorts. Just a little footnote there for our listeners.
Yeah, well, the Austrians really didn't have that much of a choice.
Correct. No, they played it smart. Right.
Well, we saw what happened to Poland when they resisted. Then there's the third part of the secret, and just like the first part of the secret, there was the first two parts of the secret. The third secret is also divided into two parts.
Right.
And there is, as the first one, you had the vision and the commentary.
Okay.
Then what's the third secret is the vision and the commentary. And what has been published is only the vision. The commentary has not been published.
Okay. Now let me say one thing, if I might, Father Kramer. This was a big worldwide news event at the time. And these visions and commentaries came down over in a number of days. When word got out that the three children, the boy and the little girls, were in touch with, so to speak, and this was daylight, the Virgin Mary, how many people showed up? There were massive crowds of people. Am I correct?
It is conservatively estimated that at least 70,000 showed up on October the 13th to witness the miracle of the Son, because it was on the day that the secret was revealed in July. The Blessed Virgin said that she will work a great miracle so that everyone will believe, and that miracle was manifested. A spectacular miracle that took place in the front of at least 70,000, between 70 and 100,000 witnesses were there, not just there at that place, but even in the surrounding villages, people saw the miracle of the Son. So
this is really fascinating, because there are photographs of these crowds and the children. You can look it up online. They have pictures.
In the secret, the second part of the secret, again, she said there would be a war that would be worse than the present war, which was World War I was not yet over. She said this war will come to an end, but if people don't repent, that there's going to be another worse war will take place. And she warned of other events that will take place, but that part of the secret was never revealed. There was in 1980, or 1981 to be precise, something of the third secret was revealed. And I know this to be a fact because this took place in Fulda, Germany. And
now let me, if I might, please, the vision and then the narration, we can call it, right? Can we do that? The visionary part, and then, all right. So the vision of the third secret is well known at this point. Is that a safe statement? But the narration part, the descriptors are not. You're saying, okay, and you're saying that a small part of the description was apparently, possibly released in a town in Germany. Go ahead, please.
Pope John Paul II went to Germany. I don't remember the exact date. I remember I happened to be going to Germany in June, July of 1980. And I remember I hardly got off the train in Fulda when a lady approached me and said she saw that I was dressed as a foreign cleric, and she said, "You're a priest?" I said, "Yes." And she said, the Pope is coming here. I said, "Yes, I know." And he came, and he met with a group of pilgrims in the cathedral in Fulda. Now, there's a crypt below the main altar in Fulda where they have the tomb of Saint Boniface, who was the patron saint of Germany.
Okay.
I know the place very well because the first Mass I ever celebrated in Germany was there at the tomb of Saint Boniface, and that was the place where Pope John Paul II met with a group of about 50 pilgrims, and they asked him about the secret of Fatima. And his answer actually reveals more than he might have even wanted to let on. The question was, what about the third secret of Fatima? Should it not have already been published by 1960? Well, it had been intended to be published by 1960. There was a notation on the envelope that it should be released in 1960. And that would have been written at the time when Pius XII actually opened the secret. It was known, there was a press release in 1960 that the secret would not be revealed, but it had been opened, it had been read.
I remember that too. I do remember, yeah. Got it.
What was not publicized, there was no press release, was that Pius XII had done the same in 1957, and I believe he's the one who put that notation on an outer envelope, 1960. And that's why there was that mystery, why there's so many envelopes, because it was before John the 23rd opened it in 1960. It was already opened by Pius XII in 1957. I'll get into that later, but first I want to point out what John Paul II had to say. I can say this is true because it's not only did it appear in a newspaper called Stimme des Glaubens, a German magazine, Catholic magazine, Stimme des Glaubens, the voice of faith in German. But I remember when I was visiting at a convent of nuns in the Diocese of Fulda, in a small town called Steinbach, I was talking about the message of Fatima and the secret of Fatima, and the Mother Superior called one of the other sisters to bring to me a copy of a document that they had. And it was a priest by the name of Father Bonifatius who had been present in Fulda. He was a priest of the Diocese of Fulda, and he had taken down, either in shorthand or recorded, because it was word for word identical to what was in that published account.
Got it.
So that's how I'm certain that this was an authentic statement made by Pope John Paul II, that the journalist didn't invent this. Father Bonifatius was there. He was a witness. He wrote it down. The nuns had it in their convent. They showed it to me. It was in handwritten in German, and next to the handwriting, parallel to the handwriting, there was a typewritten text in German. I compared it as best as I could to see that that they matched perfectly, and they did. I don't read German handwriting very well, to put it mildly, but the typewritten German, I'm able to read the typewritten German.
Right.
So this is an authentic.
Now, our listeners, I think, would like me to ask you this. Father Kramer, did either of the popes who read the description of the third secret of Fatima spill the beans that we know about, or did they keep it utterly to themselves? What is the information that we do have or don't have from those two readings? Is there much?
They didn't keep it utterly to themselves because they had other people present when they opened it, both times.
Okay.
In 1957, Cardinal Stritch was one of the ones who was present, and he was accompanied by a priest by the name of Father Lawrence Emmett Hughes.
Okay.
And Father Hughes in 1957 spoke about that, but he said he wasn't at liberty to reveal the entire contents. But he did say that there would be a movement in the church to eliminate by stages to get rid of the Mass. And of course...
The Mass. So no more celebrating of a Mass on Sunday, so to speak. That's it. Okay.
That this, by stages, it would eventually lead to that.
Would it eventually lead to the end of the Roman Catholic Church?
Well, not exactly, but it will. This is something that, in fact, even before Fatima, it was already explained very well by Cardinal Henry Edward Manning in a book he published in 1861.
Wow.
It was a series of 4 lectures. And he shows how the ancient fathers and some of the greatest theologians in the history of the church were unanimous about how in the end times, the apocalyptic times, that Rome would abandon the faith. Rome would revert to paganism. The true pope will be driven out of Rome, and it will appear, to use the cardinal's words, it will appear that the church has been swept off the face of the earth.
That's why I asked that question. I have been...
For a time.
Yes, okay. I've been told that...
Fatima.
Yes, understood.
1861.
I gotcha. Go ahead. Yeah. I've been told that the church will disappear. It's going to implode, whatever word you wish to assign, and then apparently will be brought back with a different configuration of some kind. I'm keeping it very broad here because you're the expert, not I, but I have heard this before. Question. Is this potentially and I'm using this term in quotes, is this potentially the last pope, the one we have now?
I can answer very simply, no. It is not the last pope, but there is going to be some period of time, a couple of years, maybe 2.5, 3 years, that the church will be without a pope.
Oh, interesting. That sounds like quite an intrigue. Why would there be a vacancy of 2 to 3 years or more for no pope?
It has happened before. There was almost 4 years between the reign of Pope Marcellus and Pope Saint Marcellinus.
Okay.
Then
they were fighting over the similarity of their names. I get it now. Okay.
But
so there was a 4-year gap. Does the church then recede in the public eye for that period of quasi-vacancy, or does it somehow continue to manifest its power and projection worldwide? What do you expect? If I think what you're saying is there's going to be another void, potentially.
Well, there's going to be something that fills the void, unfortunately. And this is where we get to something that is truly apocalyptic. And it was a canonized saint, Saint Pio of Petrocina. While he was alive, we called him Padre Pio. He explained about the third secret of Fatima, and he didn't read the text, a written text, but it was Virgin Mary who spoke to the children who spoke to him. And he's a canonized saint. So in the church, the very fact that he's a canonized saint means that the revelations he receives are eminently credible.
Understood.
And he spoke with Father Gabriele Amort, who died just recently in the last couple of years. I met Father Amort about 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And in a book by Jose Maria Zavala, translated into English, the Spanish title is something like the most carefully guarded secret. He reports the conversation between Padre Pio and Father Amorth about the third secret of Fatima. And he says that there will be a counterfeit church, a false church.
Now, this may bring us, if you want, we might now mention Volume 2 of your trilogy is out, and it is entitled On the True and the False Pope,
yes.
The Case Against Bergoglio.
Yes, this book is just out, and I began writing these books. It began with a book called The Mystery of Iniquity, which was the geopolitical aspect of the Secret of Fatima. And the very heart of the message of Fatima, of course, is about the false church and the false pope. This was something already foretold by St. Francis of Assisi, who foretold that there would be a false pope who would not be a true pastor but a destroyer.
Okay.
And I have explained, and it's 1,300 pages, and I've highly researched of argumentation of evidence showing that Pope Benedict XVI did not resign the papacy as such. He did something, and he even spoke of it as he didn't mention my name, but he spoke of about a pope in the first millennium. When there was a controversy between two claimants to the papacy, he stepped back from the administration of the church and waited for the controversy to be settled. But by then was the Holy Roman Emperor, and who was a friend of that pope, and therefore he expected a favorable outcome, and he did. And when the legal examination was done on who had the legitimate claim on the papacy, that was settled, he resumed his pontificate. Now, interestingly, when Pope Benedict spoke of that no pope has resigned, but he didn't use the word resigned. He's talking about a renunciation, a kind of renunciation that he said that has not taken place in more than 1,000 years. Now, he's not an ignorant man. He knows that Pope Gregory XII resigned the office of papacy, I believe, around 1415. Before that, there was Pope Celestine V, who had resigned the office in the early 1300s. They actually completely renounced the papacy itself. But he's referring to only one case that happened in the first millennium, and that was a pope who stepped back from the administration of the church, but did not leave the papacy altogether.
Well, what would you call it? He kind of, in a judicial sense, recused himself. He pulled himself off the duty.
That's right. The office itself is comprised of the duties of office, which are exercised, and that's what he renounced was the exercise of the ministry. But the office itself, he did not renounce, because he did not, in order to validly renounce the office, one must renounce that papal munus. And he said it is not revoked. Now
who said, when you say he said, who said?
Pope Benedict.
Benedict himself said, I am not revoking this. I am stepping aside, I'm recusing myself, whatever. Now, for all of you out there, I need to bring them up to speed.
That was on the 27th of February 2013, his last public appearance while actively serving as Pope.
And the Pope, now, for all of you out there, was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, otherwise known as Pope Francis. He is the Pope now.
He is technically an anti-pope because Benedict XVI, in his Renunciation, compares himself, as it were, to like a bishop, the former bishop of diocese. They call him Bishop Emeritus. He calls himself Pope Emeritus. That's impossible. It is, and I explain in detail, according to the principles of law, why this is impossible. But I'll just put it in a nutshell here. A bishop can be a Bishop Emeritus of a diocese because he still retains that connection with the diocese as the former bishop of the diocese. And that's because he's still a bishop after he retires. He's consecrated a bishop. He remains a bishop forever. So he can be a bishop emeritus. Where a pope cannot become a pope emeritus because when a pope renounces the office, he's no longer pope. He's a former pope. Whereas
but that's not Benedict. Benedict didn't renounce. If I'm following you right.
That's right. Unless he renounces totally. He must totally and unconditionally renounce the papacy altogether.
Yeah.
If he doesn't do that, he does not validly renounce the papacy. He made a conditional. He did not make an unconditional total renunciation. He made a very conditional qualified renunciation, which is not valid. And I've explained in detail, according to the principles of law, why it's simply impossible. And ultimately, it rests on this basic legal reality in canon law and in theology, that for a pope to renounce the office, he must renounce the papacy entirely, and he ceases altogether to be pope. He doesn't have what is called the papal munus.
Okay,
without
I understand.
The munus, so there cannot be a pope emeritus. There can only be a former pope who is no longer pope in any sense of the word, no longer pope. Whereas a bishop emeritus bishop emeritus loses jurisdiction, but he's still a bishop.
Okay. Pope Francis, how does he feel about Benedict?
Well, again, it's happened before in history. I don't remember the name of the pope, but the emperor set aside one of the valid pope.
Okay.
Put an invalid pope in his place, and the pope the true pope, pretty much acquiesced to the decision, basically taken as a prisoner to Germany by the emperor, and he never again asserted any claim on the papacy. So the difference here is that Benedict has publicly stated, and it's in an interview with Peter Zewald that's published in the biography that was published. He repeated what he said in 2013 on the 27th of February 2013, that his decision to renounce the ministry does not revoke his mandate. And of course, by not renouncing his mandate, he does not renounce the papacy. He explained himself. I quote Benedict's own words in that book of mine, where he actually used the word the pressures that are being put on him, that he's up against, the forces that he's up against. He used the word Antichrist. He says the forces he's up against were such that if he were to continue, he would have died anyways. His pontificate would have ended because he wouldn't have died. He could not have survived. He could not have survived it any longer, and that's why he went into a state of retirement. But was not.
That was 8 years ago, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But he was not willing to lay aside the papacy altogether.
We've got that. You've explained that very well, and it's obviously in your book prodigiously. What does the rank and file membership of the Catholic Church feel about this? Are they well aware of it? And what would they like to see happen?
I think most have not really examined the question. Even I, at first, when it was announced that the Pope had resigned, I simply accepted it as a fact, and I had not carefully examined the document. Mm-hmm. And it was only later that after I carefully examined the document, and then I had read commentaries by notably by a professor of canon law who pointed out the flaws in that act of renunciation.
So we don't have a whole lot of time left. We've got about 14 minutes. And I want to get back to the Fatima angle here, but did Pope Benedict make a mistake? Did he, as you just said, opt out or opt sideways? And he didn't do it right, apparently, because the pressures of evil were so ferocious that he knew they would kill him, and he didn't want to die. So there we have Pope Francis coming in.
Well, ultimately, it's in the hands of God, and I think in some manner there will be a divine intervention, because this present situation cannot continue. You have a man who very cleverly presents himself as a rather strange kind of Catholic, but when you dig deeper into what is the belief system of Jorge Bergoglio, it comes down to a heresy that is rooted in paganism, what Hilaire Belloc called the permanent trouble of the human mind. And in one word, it's called Gnosticism. And
that's an old word. Sure. Yeah.
I spoke about this with one of the cardinals back in 2009 when I spoke about writing these books. In fact, this particular cardinal, who's still alive, I can't mention his name, but this particular cardinal, every time I mentioned the infiltration of the church and such, and I mentioned certain names, he repeated 5 or 6 times the word Gnosticism. And I told him at first I was going to write an article, and I said, it's turning into a book. And he says, you must write this book. So I felt I had a mission to write these books. And this was one of the cardinals created by Pope Benedict the 16th. So we have in Francis Bergoglio a man who is not of the Catholic faith. His belief system is something ancient, one of the most ancient and dangerous heresy. It goes back to the very first century.
Oh, this is remarkable to hear this. Yeah, he's an interloper. He's not a blue blood qualified candidate. Okay.
This is in the third secret of Fatima.
All right. Let's go.
The collapse of Rome is in the third secret of Fatima, and it will be a collapse at the very top level at the papacy. Cardinal Mario Luigi Ciappi spoke of the third secret, and he said, in the third secret, it is revealed, among other things, that the great apostasy in the church will begin at the top. Cardinal Odi spoke similarly, that it's about the loss of faith. It has to do with faith. There are many catastrophes, terrible catastrophes. There will be a world war. There's going to be terrible epidemics that will wipe out nations. There will be one particularly catastrophic incident, and that's the one that Pope John Paul II mentioned. He said, many wish to know simply from curiosity and a taste for the sensational, but they forget that knowledge also implies responsibility. So there's something very sensational there, and he says, it should be sufficient for all Christians to know this. If there is a message in which it is written that the oceans will flood whole areas of the earth, and that from one moment to the next, millions of people will perish.
Wow.
Surely the publication of such a message is no longer something so much to be desired. Well, he was economical with the truth. Yes, it is something to be desired because it was given by heaven. The message came from heaven. It was given so that it would be revealed. So I don't think we could say we shouldn't desire it to be revealed, because by revealing it, people will understand the seriousness of the situation that we're in the world today. Now,
I think many already do, and I think what you're saying underscores that. We are in abject crises all around the world, pandemics, massive geological events, volcanoes, earthquakes, droughts, food shortages, death, dying. We're headed into an apocalyptic time, and that must be part of the third secret, the narration. Am I correct?
That's right. That's right. The third secret is apocalyptic. When Pope John Paul II beatified the two of the three children, Francisco and Jacinta, speaking of the message of Fatima, he quoted the Apocalypse. The message of Fatima is a warning not to be brought down by the tail of the dragon. That is, I think, in chapter 4 of the Apocalypse, that the tail of the dragon takes down 1/3 of the stars from heaven. It is something from the Apocalypse.
Wow.
Cardinal Ratzinger, before he became Benedict XVI, Cardinal Ratzinger spoke of the third secret, and he said it concerns, he didn't use the word end times, but he the last things. In Greek, that is eschatha, which is the eschatological passages of Scripture. It refers to those end time scriptures. He says it corresponds to Scripture and to the last things. So what the prophet Daniel spoke of, these things will take place in the end. We're talking about the end time prophecies of Scripture. And that Cardinal Ratzinger pinpointed that very precisely, that the message, the third secret of Fatima, speaks of the apocalyptic message of the end times.
Everyone would want me to ask you the time frame. Do you have a guess? Now, you have another book to write on this, and you're going to go into great detail then. But are we, as it seems, on the doorstep of that very kind of an apocalypse now, Armageddon, if you will? Is that correct? Are we very close to it?
I can say two things about that. St. Pio Pietrelcina was talking about these events in the future, World War III and the eventual triumph over all these evils. And this was in 1962. And I read about this around 1975. I was in Rome at the time, and I read about it in an Italian publication. So when I heard about it more recently, I remembered having read that back in the 70s. Padre Pio said, I will not live to see it. And he says to the people he was with, they were adults, and he says, you will not live to see it. And he points to some children, about 10 years old, so they're born around 1952. He says, but they will live. He pointed at them and he said, they will live to see that day.
They were born around 1950s, so they'll be in their late 60s, early 70s now, probably.
Well, I was born in 1952. I'll be turning 70 next year. So he's saying that people my age will live to see this happen.
Father Kramer, I think we're already beginning to see unmistakable signs that it has commenced. That's my view. Yes,
and to put it into context again, I mentioned it was Cardinal Stritch was there in 1957 when Pope Pius XII opened the secret and read it, and Father Lawrence Emmett Hughes spoke about this. It was on Thanksgiving Day in 1957, where he explained that there would be this movement by stages to eventually to abolish the Mass, and that the Mass would disappear. It would be very difficult, and only in very odd places it could be found. So it would be very rare and difficult to find a Catholic Mass when there will be some reform in the Church that will take place that will bring about the abolition of the Mass, because the false church is going to replace the true church. And
would the false church be led by the current Pope Francis, or would someone else step in to lead?
Francis is the one. This is why I'm giving you the time frame. Francis has called for a synod on synodality. What we are seeing taking place is the abolition of the papacy as we've known it. The monarchical, where you have a pope who has the absolute power of jurisdiction, is going to be replaced by a synodal church, where you will have the bishops acting more aristocratically, more democratically, and the national hierarchies will make the decisive, the momentous decisions. This was already foretold in the 1100s by Saint Hildegard of Bingen.
If you can, and we only have 2 minutes or so, can you? I don't want to put you on the spot.
This synod will end around 2023. It's going to go another year. The reforms will be announced then. I expect then, when you have the reforms, Francis says he wants his reforms to be irreversible. I think that is when we are going to see the Catholic Mass disappear. There will be some other kind of pseudo-Christian celebration that will replace the Mass after this synod.
Like a one world religion kind of a celebration.
That's what it's leading to. That's exactly what it's leading to, and that's just not my opinion. It was Pope Pius X, the canonized saint, who warned about this, the one world religion, and he said it would be neither Catholic, Protestant, nor Jewish. No, it's going to be something more Gnostic and pagan. And that is where it's all leading.
Boy, I'm not surprised to hear this. All you have to do is look around, and all you see is paganism rearing its head all over the place. Hedonism, paganism.
Yes.
Morality is virtually gone from many sectors of our world now, and all by design. It sounds like the politics at the highest levels in the Vatican are there probably quite a lot of people opposed to each other. Let me just keep it simplistic.
Yes.
They don't get along.
The collapse of Catholicism, though. When we see the collapse of Catholicism in Rome, then the hand of God will strike the world with punishment after that. So I think sometime after 2023, after these reforms are completed, then all the netherworld will break loose. There will be World War III. There will be something even worse after that. There will be, for a time, there will be a new world order that will be defeated.
Well, that's quite a scenario we look ahead to, and I hope something does show up to clean out the evil that is clearly trying to take control of the planet.
That's why the Blessed Virgin asked for the consecration of Russia. Throughout the Bible, we see when there is consecration, something or someone is consecrated when they are given some divine mission, some divine purpose. And to be given the grace to accomplish that mission, they must be consecrated. That Russia is to be consecrated. Russia is to fulfill this mission.
Interesting.
Russia will be instrumental.
Well, Father Kramer, I want to commend you for taking the stance you have of being an historian and an objective reporter about this. It's quite clear that it's a very big struggle that's going on now. This affects a lot of people, and a lot more than just people. It affects governments, economies, and potentially war. It's all there. It's all there. So thank you, Father Paul Kramer, very much for being here. I've greatly enjoyed it, and you have a lot of very interested listeners. So you've presented it very well, and we appreciate you. So thank you. Take care and be well, and we'll talk again.
Okay, and thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. Okay. Father Paul Kramer